Well, right, because on January 26th, 1990, you came home from a night of drinking and your wife was out as well. And a really bad situation happened next.
Oh yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. I pulled a pistol on her face. You know, and that was another thing. That's the thing I was saying. I said I would never be like my father, but I ended up being just like him.
Right.
I ended up being the same way of who he was. And a lot of times when kids grow up and they see that in the home, eventually it plays out in their life and they end up doing the same thing. It's not like it's something you want to do, but it becomes a part of who you are. And that's the reality of so many young kids that come from broken situations. They end up making the same decisions. And I was no different than anybody else, but just because I had a uniform. See, I always tell people what they need to understand about having a baseball uniform on. A baseball uniform does not make you a man. It just makes you a baseball player. And I think too many people don't understand that with athletes. Putting on a uniform does not make you a man. Living behind community gates because you got millions of dollars, you got money in the bank, and you drive every car, it does not make you a man. It just makes you an athlete. And people need to understand that. They're becoming a man is a whole different thing in life. And I think a lot of times, a lot of us never know what that looks like. If you've never seen it in your house, then how do you know how to become one? I never saw it in my house. I saw my father being an alcoholic, a womanizer. Guess what? I ended up being the same way. Alcoholic, drug addict, womanizer, because that's all I saw. If you grow up in a household and your father's there and you got stability in your family and it's stable, then you see that. And there's very few guys that will put on a uniform that will have that. I could tell you that from playing sports at the highest level, being on the cover of Sports Illustrated 7 times, winning championships and doing all these things. 95% of athletes will end up in divorce. It's only a small percentage that will end up staying with one wife and one family. Majority will end up experiencing life in all types of areas and different women in their life and end up in divorce. It's just a reality that is real. And people say, well, no, he's crazy about it. No, I am not crazy about it. I have played, I have seen it with my own eyes, and I've seen even some of the goody-goody two-shoe players that thought they were good end up in divorce, when they were playing. The only guys that I never seen end up in divorce that were real guys and that lived a real way was Gary Carter and Mookie Wilson. Two players that I could say that I saw really didn't womanize, really didn't drink, really didn't go out to the clubs, didn't go out to strip clubs. They didn't do all of that, what most of us were doing. And most of us be consumed and caught up in that is because most of us are broken and searching for something that could satisfy us on the inside because we have this career, we have success, but that doesn't really, all that doesn't satisfy you. It's just a bunch of stuff you accumulate and you have this great success doing it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was a really bad situation because you end up, an argument ensues. She pulls out like a metal rod and hits you in the ribs with it. And then you pull out a gun and put it, how you described, like the roof of her nose.
Yeah.
And then her mom walked out and saw the whole thing. So she calls the police. So once again, full circle, what happened with your dad and the shotgun, and the police come and arrest you. And except as opposed to just a working guy who works for the post office, you are a baseball star that has to deal with the public consequences of this situation. So now you have to tell the Mets what happened, and they have to deal with the repercussions of it.
I always have to deal with it from a public perception because being a star, and when you're a star, and I tell people, be careful what you ask for. People be like, I want to be a star, and I wouldn't do what they did. You don't know what you might do. You don't know what you'll do in those situations. You don't know what kind of lifestyle you have when there's no no's, when everything is a yes. You can do whatever you want to do. Some people without telling you, you might have killed yourself, just in that lifestyle, which so many celebrities will end up doing, killing themselves, drowning themselves, in the alcohol and drugs to try to escape from, the notoriety and attention. And that's pretty much what I had to deal with. I had to deal with the organization, and I had to deal with the doctor, the team doctor, who psychiatrist called me and said, I think you need to go into treatment. You got a problem with drinking. And that was my first trip to rehab, from there. I didn't want to go because, but I had no choice, because after pulling out a gun and putting it in my wife's face, anything can happen. So it's the consequences. The consequences are real. They start to pile up. If you don't change who you are, you're going to continue to get the consequences. And I think a lot of people don't ever think they're going to continue to get more consequences. And that's the reality of it. If you do not make a change on the inside of yourself, because this professional life that we live in, and when you're living it at the highest level, you can do just about whatever you want to do. And that's just the way it is.